Hey there, welcome to Subject Matter. This is episode 2 of season 5. I'm your host as always, Ben Bradbury, and today we have a really interesting episode for you, getting into exactly how to ask a really great question. Questions can really be the thing that make or break the success of a day. The right answer is unlocked by the right question, and we're going to be getting into exactly how to do that here today. Before we go any further, make sure to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching, or on your podcast player of choice, whatever your poison is. If that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or something else, it really does make a big difference in helping us get discovered and spread the word. So I would really appreciate that. The right questions unlock relationships, make you more productive, and help you hit pause on life's hamster wheel. And in this episode, we'll be digging into the anatomy of what makes a great question and how to use those questions to think more deeply. We'll be learning from a gentleman called Marc Champagne and why he literally wrote the book on the power of questions from some of the world's greatest leaders and the mental fitness practices they use. If you haven't listened to our full interview, go ahead and listen to that either after this episode, or you can hit pause to listen to Marc directly. And today I'll be showing you how the right question can stop this relentless cycle of productivity and why you're only one question away from a better life. When Marc Champagne wrote his book, Personal Socrates, he had one goal in mind: to help people improve the way that they think. In very practical terms, Marc believes the key is developing a mental fitness practice similar to those used by Kobe Bryant, Robin Williams, Maya Angelou, and tons of other top-class performers. And this all begins when you ask yourself a question. And for Marc, that one question was, what do I want from my life? And this question came when he found himself at a significant personal and professional crossroads. And it was this one question that quickly led to another and another. And it's this momentum of being able to ask one question and use that to find the next big question is what leads to great clarity of thought and vision. And this is what's helped Marc direct the course of his life, having closed down a highly successful journaling app, Keo, after 3 years in business and almost reaching 87 million people. And though he was fearful and uncertain about where his future lay, asking the right questions of himself and deploying mindfulness practices such as gratitude helped Marc cut through the mental fog. And this clearer mind led to the kind of deep thinking and questioning that has ultimately shaped the course of his future. As an ambitious professional, I bet you're all too often short on time and find yourself on the hamster wheel of life, prioritizing productivity. But taking the time to think deeply is gifting yourself the luxury of the pause. Hitting stop, even for a few minutes a day, allows you to develop your own healthy mental practices and ask the kind of questions that empower you and your teams. As Marc puts it, it allows you to pause the narrative. It's also what helps you connect on a deeper level to those you manage. Asking questions, showing genuine interest and curiosity unlocks deeper relationships and demonstrates a desire to understand better. Marc believes developing this kind of mental fitness is something even the busiest professional can incorporate with practical, guided direction. In his interviews with some of the top CEOs at large brands, 100% of them followed some kind of daily reflective practice, and Marc wants you to do the same. So let's unpack in some more detail how busy professionals just like you can put Marc's tools into practice. Having this reflective practice as a high performer all starts with a great question. And the nature of a great question, Marc says, is that it leads to other questions. It stimulates thinking that otherwise would not have happened. But to make that happen, you need to hit pause. And that's easier said than done when you're managing a team or trying to forge ahead in your career. But it's ultimately a practice that will benefit those you deal with professionally and yourself personally, just being able to gift yourself the luxury of that pause. The quality of the questions you ask is vital. And so even better than a great question is actually a well-timed question. When you ask yourself the certain question matters a lot. And the other part of this that matters is asking why you're doing something, getting to the heart of your motivations. So let's take a real example from Adobe's Chief Product Officer, Scott Belsky. He regularly takes the time to ask, why am I building this? Why does this matter? And when you question your why, you're digging deep to understand the nature of your question. Now, I know from experience that we can easily become focused on productivity, being busy, but this kind of thing eliminates this deep thinking. As Marc says, you've got this incredible thing on your shoulders, aka your brain, and if you let it do its job, you have all the answers to the questions that you're asking. You just need your mind to connect the dots. So let's make this practical. To start incorporating deep thinking time into a daily habit, start by asking yourself these 3 questions. But even more than that, be prepared for them to lead to other questions. That's the important piece of asking a great question. Start by asking yourself, what's my intuition telling me? From here, you can start linking questions together and see which direction your thought process takes you. Then you can ask, how can I hold space for others? This is something that Claude Silver, the Chief Heart Officer at VaynerMedia, often asks. And this question, how can I hold space for others, is particularly relevant for remote workforces. When you want to really show up for them, you have to be present mentally. And that's hard when your mind is crammed full of other things. Holding space means being present, engaging a hard focus on the people that you're meeting with. The second question, once we've questioned our intuition, is from the writer Jane Austen, who asks, who are the characters of my internal empire? Like a successful story needs a cast of characters, so does your life and the emotions you have. By labeling your emotions and giving them a character and a story, it helps you understand what makes you, you. So start by questioning your intuition, label the characters of your internal empire, and ask how you can hold space for others with your team. So what does it mean to actually be a deep thinker? Well, here's some closing thoughts for you. Many of the world's most successful people have developed daily mental fitness practices. These reflective practices not only help professionals themselves, but the people they lead and the customers they interact with. Taking the time to reflect in this manner is a gift that you give to yourself. And it all starts with a well-timed question, and that question leads to the kind of deep thinking that can change your perspective. Now, there's a lot more to asking questions, as I'm sure you know, and I would love to explore this topic further if it's something you're interested in. So let me know down below if you're watching on YouTube, or you can reach out to me on Twitter if you're listening to this. What are some of the great questions that you have stored that you like asking? I would love to explore them on the show and maybe shout you out in a future episode as well.